Put you on a slew of like...
We're all alive.
We're all alive. Wait, let me just stop for 1 second. This is Jon Levy. He, just a super interesting guy, author. I call you a producer of many things, creator, all of it, and we're going to hear about it. But we're in the middle of hearing about Jon's amazing transformation in 90 days. But I want to hear the rest of it. So go on.
So essentially, I agreed to be a before and after fitness model for these late night video infomercials, and I had no idea like how intense the training would be. The first 10 days, they first of all put you on a different boxed meal plan, high protein.
Give me an example of a meal.
A meal would be cauliflower and eggs for breakfast, and then since I was a vegetarian when I started, it was like just tofu all the time.
Yeah.
But they couldn't pump me with enough calories because tofu isn't very calorie rich. So I was eating so few that I think I lost 10 pounds in the first 10 days.
Wow.
And then what happens is that because we were so active, my basal metabolic rate was so high that I was eating 4,000 calories a day and still hungry. I lost, by the end, 20 pounds of fat, gained 10 pounds of muscle in 90 days.
It's amazing.
And but my body temperature felt constantly high because I was training so intensely. And the weirdest thing was at one point I even dislocated my leg because the training was so intense. I had to, like, somebody had to hold me in place to put it back in.
Oh my God.
It was just craziness. But at the end, I looked like I was on the cover of Men's Health. I was 7% body fat, perfect abs. I was able to maintain for a really long time until I needed surgery. And then I ended up, I injured my hand, so I couldn't work out. But it was great. The immune system was like impenetrable. I was so healthy. And just the biggest issue was that my body temperature was high all the time because of my body was...
Right. How often are you working out a day?
I would do, during their training, I was doing 45 to 50 minutes of high intense cardio, and then I would do an additional like half hour of weights, and then and then after that point I would try to do like 4 days a week. So, and now my schedule's crazy. I was in 12 countries this past summer. I was on all 7 continents last year. Every year I do these crazy travel projects, so working out becomes a lot more complex.
So how would you describe what you do for a living?
I'm a human behavior scientist.
Human behavior scientist, okay.
So
which means?
I do research on kind of 2 topics. One is influence, what causes us to make the decisions that we make and how to affect them. And the second is the science of adventure, what causes us to live fun, exciting, and remarkable lives. And where am I looking from?
Doesn't matter.
Oh, it doesn't matter.
We have Facebook and Twitter and
hello everybody.
And
okay.
Everybody's out.
So essentially, my background was I was taking scientific research for companies. I was applying it to make the companies more successful. So
example.
So let's say you're designing an event.
Okay.
Right. I can just tell you, I was working with a mobile dating company, and they were
one of the apps.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
was it a V?
Yeah.
I hate him. Thank you for helping me save my life.
No problem. See that? I'm a hero.
And he's a hero. Add that to the end of his bio.
So, and they were curious, okay, how do we engage people? And they were launching in India. So I said, here's what I want you to find out. At your launch event, I want you to find out what the Indian equivalent is to hot chocolate chip cookies. And they're like, listen, we don't have time to research this. I go, this is important, and here's why. There's something called the peak end rule. It was discovered by a Nobel laureate named Dan Kahneman, brilliant guy. He discovered that human beings do not process the duration of pleasure or pain. All we keep track of are the peaks of experiences and how they end. I'll give you a perfect example. Let's say you go on a date, and it's the most amazing 3 hours. And at the end, you look a person in the eye, and you're like head over heels for this person.
Yeah.
And you're about to lean in for the kiss, and they look in your eyes and say, the most god-awful thing you have ever heard.
That's all you take away.
And you get home, somebody asks you, how's the date, good or bad, and you say?
Awful.
Because you remember the peaks of an experience and how it ends. So why was the cookie thing important? Because with mobile dating, the big concern is trust and security, right? If you're a woman, you want to know that you're going to be safe.
Right.
When you think of the smell and taste of hot chocolate chip cookies, what does that remind you of?
Childhood, amazing, happy, good, everything positive.
Now there's two additional characteristics. One is that scent triggers memory more than any other. And if you're holding something warm, you will like me more than if you're holding something cold. Our nervous system takes in all the information and combines it into feeling.
Interesting.
Every date from now on, hot coffee and some hot chocolate.
Yep.
And
Also,
hot chocolate
sit in
chip
comfy
cookies.
chairs. If you're sitting on a comfortable surface,
Bring a beanbag chair.
Yeah, really.
So what the idea was, as people left, we surprised them with the equivalent of hot chocolate chip cookies, because this will be the end experience that they take away with them, and we're surprising them with a delight, and the scent and flavor and warmth will trigger those responses. So now we can instill with them an emotional experience for the brand.
You want to know something? If you travel on American Airlines in first class, business class, whatever it is, they bring out the hot chocolate chip cookies at the end. I mean, sometimes I'm sitting in. I often sit. I only sit in coach, and but you smell it as people are getting off the plane, and it's the last thing that sits with you. How was your flight? You know, it was actually a good flight. The smell, and it was in there, and it was all good.
It turns out that affecting scent or any of these perceptions of our senses has a huge impact. I think Foot Locker did an experiment where they pumped a store full of the scent of flowers and it increased sales.
Scent of something, yeah, but I've heard that where they do that.
And so, or if you're a politician, it turns out that people are more receptive to what you're saying when they're eating. But if it's before and after the meal, they don't really notice it as much.
Oh, wow.
And so there's all these really wonderful quirks of human decision making and experience. And if we understand how it works, then we can get people to lose weight more effectively, help them save money. There are all these brilliant economists and psychologists and so on. They're working to understand these concepts, and I would help companies apply them, because mostly it just sits in academic circles as interesting ideas and like cocktail topics.
Right.
So after doing that for a while, I met this neuroscientist by the name of Moran Cerf. Brilliant guy. I mean, this guy is one of the top minds of our time. He's a former hacker who would hack into banks. He was a hacker for the Israeli military. Then he would hack into banks stealing money to test the banking security systems.
Wow.
And so then he
By
said...
the way, I always thought, and I've said this before, hackers should run our country. They're the smartest ones.
They're
Wait,
brilliant.
hackers aren't running our country?
I know, you're right. But they should. But they should.
Right. Oh, sorry.
Go on. But you're right.
So he says, you know,
Oh, 1 second. Time out.
Jason
Sheila,
came back?
Sheila says good morning.
Oh, hi, Mom. Sorry, I always have to stop and say hi to my mom.
Hi, Mom.
Say hi to Jon Levy, not to be confused with Levy. Just thought I would throw that. We had a good friend in Haiti named Michael Levy. Also Jewish, Israeli. Speaking of Israelis.
So Moran then gets an appointment at MIT, Kellogg, and NYU and says, John, I want you to start doing research with me. So I do research for companies on either looking at their data or whatever it is, or consult for them on their social experience design. And then I personally look at influence, what causes us to make the decisions that we make, influencers, so the people who shape our society. And then I spent years traveling around the world studying the science of adventure. Literally, what causes us to live fun, exciting, and remarkable lives. And it all kind of started with this absurd story where I was in 8th grade. My teacher decides to throw out our seating chart and says each person can privately submit 2 people they don't want to sit down next to and 2 people they want to sit down
What
next
grade
to.
were you in?
8th.
8th grade.
And
2 people you don't, 1 person you do.
2 people you do, 2 people you don't.
Okay.
Now, I unfortunately find out 2 things. One, there's 1 student nobody wants to sit with. The second is that student is me.
Stop it.
And so I'm totally heartbroken. I try all these things to fit in. None of it works because I was a geek. And in the 90s, if you were a geek, it meant that you were relegated to the fringe of society, right?
Yeah.
There were no dot-com billionaires, no cool...
So sorry. That's
Like-
awful.
Jenna had a similar experience when she
high
moved
school
here
was
from.
the same thing
What
for me.
happened?
No, I moved from another country and I didn't know how to dress or speak or
Where are you from?
Haiti.
Are you really?
Yeah. And I'm a crazy adventurist. I was daredevil, fearless, all of it, and I thought that would help me fit in, and it was just turned me into an outcast. Anyway, I'll tell you more about that after. Go on. So now you're there. You are. You're the outcast.
Yeah, and so I figured if I can kind of unlock human behavior, maybe I could solve the issue of popularity and fitting in.
At 8th grade.
It was like a slow process. It originally started, I think, with I saw Ferris Bueller's Day Off, And I was like, I want to understand what he does, and so I can mimic it.
Okay.
And so I started looking at.
Actually, let me interrupt you. Ferris Bueller is, by the way, one of the 64 movies that are in our movie poll, so you can still go vote in our movie poll.
Right, okay.
I'm sorry for
I don't know if you know Lance, who's our king of non sequiturs. He just
Right, that's basically.
Your
I bet
Highness.
there's something. There's like
Yeah,
something
Your
mentioned
Highness.
there that actually has some relevance to.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Right, I'm sorry.
Perhaps not in the middle of a sentence, but definitely.
It was just like he was there. He was Ferris Bueller. I was believing that since he's had this since 8th grade, he was going to be able to stay on the same track.
Exactly.
This one's no problem. So I started looking to understand all these things. What actually causes us to live exciting lives? What causes people to engage and connect? And really, like, slowly but surely, I kept like chipping away at different ideas. And what I discovered was on the side of adventure, every adventure follows a predictable 4-stage process, and each stage has specific characteristics that when you apply them, make life exciting. And it's something that anybody
What a
can
way
learn.
to break down something I never thought in a million years needed breaking down. So hit me.
Okay, so the basic premise begins with, if adventures happened randomly, all of us would live similarly exciting lives, and we don't. Right? Certain people
Seek them out.
Certain people live really exciting lives. Certain people like just staying at home reading a book.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with any of that. But if we could figure out what those people that live very exciting lives do, then anybody could learn to do it.
Okay.
And so the first stage of any adventure is establish. You put the right elements in place so that anything can happen. The most important, by far, is selecting the right group of people. Now, when you were talking a few minutes ago about, like, oh, it's because I don't eat this, don't eat that, people say, oh, you're so skinny.
Yeah.
If we're curious about the impact of our social circle on our behavior, there's phenomenal research by these two guys, Nicholas Christakis and James Fowler, and they were curious about the obesity epidemic. They were curious because is it the type of epidemic that'll pass from person to person the way that a cold does? Or is it a percentage of the population, like Alzheimer's? And what they found was absolutely staggering. If you have a friend who's obese, your chances of obesity increase by 45%.
Really?
But here's what's more wild than that. Your friends that don't know the obese person, their chances increase by 25%, their friends by 10%, and their friends by 5%.
How? Why?
For the exact reason that people said, oh, just have some dessert. What's the big deal? Because first of all, there's a ton of reasons, right? It's people who are fit tend to go to the same workout classes, so they're going to be fit, and that'll promote them to be even more fit. But if you have a friend who really likes to indulge in desserts, chances are much higher that you'll indulge when you spend time with them.
Right.
And so it turns out that everything passes through this superhuman organism called our social network, ranging from happiness and fitness to divorce and marriage rates to voting patterns. And you can fundamentally impact your life simply by curating the people around you. And so the most important thing you can do to live an exciting, remarkable life is curate well.
Just keep really interesting, adventurous, or whatever direction you want to go in,
Exactly.
keep those kind of people around you.
And sometimes the answer is, I've been going too crazy and not focusing on work, so I want to maybe surround myself with more work-conscious people. And that's also fun. There's a time and place. Right?
Right.
The second most important thing when you're establishing, is selecting a new location. And the reason is that
Establishing what location?
a new location.
A new location.
Preferably, right? And the reason is that in a new environment, your brain operates differently. You have a section of the brain called the SNVTA. It's a complex name, but
I'm going to totally take your word for it.
and this section responds proportionately to how different something is. Right? So if something's familiar, we don't really care. We don't notice it. Like when you're driving in a familiar neighborhood, you might not even remember the ride, and you'll get home and you're like, wait, how did I get here? Right? You were so caught up thinking about something else.
Or when you get in a shower and you're like, did I shampoo already? I don't even remember, because you do it every day.
It's so familiar.
Yeah.
It's actually like a car light. Like it feels like sometimes when you're going someplace and you don't know where you're going, it feels like it takes longer than when you know where you're going. Right?
Right.
Or is that...
So wait, say this one again. It feels
like if you don't know where you're going, it can feel like it takes a very long time. If you're going the same distance and you know where you're going, it goes much faster.
There's this really interesting characteristic of control that we would as people, we would rather wait 10 minutes for the train when we know when it's arriving than 5 and not know. So like, if I'm waiting at the platform and I don't know when the train's coming, those 5 minutes are a lot more uncomfortable than if it says 10 minutes away.
Right.
And so we will...
But what does that say about us?
That we have a certain tolerance and intolerance for uncertainty, right?
Okay.
And it also might be talking about boredom. In the book, there's this study that I discussed, which is absolutely insane. People were given the option of sitting in a room with nothing to read and nothing to do for a set period of time, let's say 15, 20 minutes, whatever it was. And they were given the option of just being alone with their thoughts, or the option of being able to self-administer low-level electric shocks. And quite frequently, mostly men would pick electric shocks.
Just because it was something they had to do, or it was an activity?
Exactly. It was because for us, especially I think in our culture these days, we're so not used to being bored.
Right.
Or we're so used to being overstimulated.
Right.
That we don't know how to be kind of alone with our thoughts anymore.
Do you remember that show, Northern Exposure?
Yes.
There's a great episode where the Dr. Fleischman had this bet with his assistant, who was American Indian, that he could sit for 10 minutes in silence in a chair and do nothing, because she would do it for hours and hours and hours a day. And they did it in real time, and he literally, I mean, it was a show, but couldn't do it. Physically couldn't do it. I mean, you were in his head. What is that? I need to clean over there. I didn't even clean. And then it would come up. We're like, is that a fly? Oh, we have flies in here? We really should close the door. He physically could not sit by himself alone, quiet in a chair. Completely well-educated, a doctor, like the whole thing. And here's this very simple woman who's never left that town, fully able to be alone and center.
It's pretty incredible.
Wow.
And I'm probably guilty of this more than most, considering my need for stimulation.
Yeah.
So what ends up happening is that in the established phase, there's also, you can set up a kind of a game to play, like set up a challenge for your experience, and also you set up a constraints. Because if you're like in a small town and you're going to the same 3 bars every night, then it doesn't feel special anymore, and the novelty's gone. So to create novelty, what you can do is you say, okay, if I'm going out for drinks, let's make it a game.
Okay.
I'm not allowed to pay for any of my own drinks. I can only convince strangers to do it. Now, all of a sudden, those familiar environments, you view them completely differently.
Interesting.
Or maybe one of the challenges that I took on was I went on a date, and on the date, we had to do 3 acts of kindness for complete strangers.
Oh, I love that.
Or did you say 3 acts of kindness?
Yeah, for complete strangers.
For complete on the date.
Yeah, you each had to do
and
it.
we had a budget, so we could go to Dwayne Reed and pick up cards or food or whatever, but we couldn't spend more than that, and so we had to be really creative. Right? This kind of came about because in my 20s I didn't have much extra cash, so I would create a date games that would require virtually no money. Like
Date games with John.
Yes.
We have a new segment.
Right.
So what would we do?
Oh, by the way, we haven't mentioned this we are trying to run a segment,
Yes.
Date with Connor.
Date with Connor. Perfect.
Connor, on your next date,
Trying to get
maybe.
this guy a date.
Oh, really?
Desperately. Yeah. He's not as desperate as we make him out to be, but okay, wait, let me hear. I'm dying.
So I got really good at like inventing these crazy concepts because I just didn't have the cash.
Right.
So constraints are actually a really good thing. They fuel creativity, and they make familiar experiences exciting again.
Sure.
And so I would go out and we'd have $20, so what would we do? I'd buy a box of chalk and a bottle of wine, and we'd go to the park.
Yeah.
And we'd like draw and just have fun.
Yeah.
And it was great. And it doesn't require somebody to come from wealth to live an exciting life.
Sure.
You just
I have
to
a question from the Peanut Gallery here.
Yeah.
Not Peanut Gallery. This is John from Jerry Hill, who's one of our regulars. He wants to know, how did the dates like these games?
Oh, I think the impression I always got was that they thought it was incredibly original and fun, because when you
They didn't know he was dirt poor.
Yes.
Basically.
Shh.
Right.
I don't let out my secret.
Right.
So I think they thought it was incredibly fun because it's so easy to go to a coffee shop and end up in an interview.
Yeah.
right? Like just saying, okay, what do you do? What do you do?
You're right.
And it's so easy to like go out to dinner or go see a movie or like do all the cliche things, but that's not my personality anyway. So it wouldn't be the right date to go on
It's
if I
not
wanted.
a pure reflection of who you are.
Yeah, exactly. And or my bank account.
Or your bank account. What your bank account is.
Yeah. So that's kind of the first stage of an adventure. You want to put the right elements in place. Now you're finally like leaving your house and you're going to do something. And as I define an adventure, you have to grow from it. You have to cross some kind of social, physical, or emotional boundary.
Okay.
So the second stage is push boundaries, right? If you're doing an outdoor adventure, it might be going further, climbing further, whatever it is that you've done. If it's, I have friends who just went on a 100-mile motorcycle ride.
Oh.
And it gets brutal. Like, that's a physical limitation.
Yeah.
A social one would be rules set by society that we've kind of inherited.
Okay.
Like, it's not appropriate to sing on the subway or, do all these things. It's not deemed socially appropriate. But what if you went around serenading people with a group of friends and have great voices, right? Like, it's fun, it's clever, it's something different to do.
Right.
And so that would be an example of a social boundary. And then there's social, physical, and emotional. And emotional is something that's an internal boundary that you've set up. So you see that cute person at the bar and you're scared to go talk to them. That's a great reason to do it. Because if it won't kill you and it scares you, it's probably a great way to grow.
Face your fear. Own it. Stare it down.
Absolutely.
That's really cool.
So then third stage, increase, you maximize the value or
There must be some kind of crime going on right in Midtown. This is now the 4th helicopter that has now circled our building. It's not
Helicopter
happening
combined
here.
with the
With the jackhammer.
the
There's
jackhammer.
a lot of extraneous noise going on today. I apologize.
Okay, so now there's a whole debate going on over here about the success of your dates. I'm sorry.
That's
Yeah,
not.
go ahead.
So you opened up Pandora's box. So to sort of take them all into,
What is going on? Go on.
have you ever been married?
No,
Okay.
I'm not.
And
I've been in a 4-year-long relationship.
what is the number of what is the percentage of second dates who said yes after going through this experience?
Oh, that's a great question. That was my 20s. I think the bigger issue is that since I live on the road half the time, it's difficult to even plan a second date.
Yeah.
So
So the numbers are skewed, is
Yeah.
what he's trying to say.
Actually, they are saying that the helicopters are trying to watch the General Welsh show
Sure they are.
live.
Wi-Fi up there. Okay, so finish it off now.
Okay, so increase, you maximize the emotional value.
Yeah.
That's the third stage. So you can use challenges, you can entertain. There's all these different characteristics. And then the final is continue. Continue, you consider things like transportation, the risk and unpredictability of something else, all
Right.
these things in there. And if you continue, you loop back. Otherwise, it's critical that you end with style. And the reason is the peak end rule. Because how you end will define how you remember it.
Right.
And so, all too often, people push the experience way past the point that it's enjoyable. Right? They try to close out the party as if there's some great honor to that. And then they end up exhausted the next day, or at a pizza place at 4 o'clock in the morning,
Right.
being like, guys, we can still make this great.
Right.
No, it's not going to be great.
It's over.
Just call it. So,
Second.
so
One second, I'm sorry. Just.
This is now the 8th circle that it's made. It doesn't like us. He hates those cans.
So the 4 stages are establish, push boundaries, increase, continue, or EPIC, epic.
Epic.
So I call it the epic model of adventure, and my book is called The 2 a.m. Principle, Discover the Science of Adventure, and the 2 a.m. principle is nothing good happens after 2 a.m. except the most epic experiences of your life.
After 2 a.m.
Yes. So nothing good happens after 2 a.m. except the most epic experience. So either you should have just gone home and gotten a full night's sleep, or
something great happens.
yeah, or you I'll end up in a dance off with Usher.
Right.
Or
right.
I'll never forget this. It was 5:17 a.m. I'm in Stockholm Arlanda Airport. I'm traveling with my best friend Liam. It's 2014, so my 2014 plan was every 3 days I switched cities around the world.
Oh my God, that was your yearly plan?
I did for a month and a half because it was brutal. Right?
Brutal.
It's just exhausting. And I'm going through duty free at Stockholm Airport. I'm on my way to Israel to meet up with my family for a family reunion. My best friend's coming with me. And I passed the girl behind the counter at duty free my ticket. And she takes it and she goes, "Oh, Israel." And I go, "Yeah, do you want to come?" I'm like kidding, right? And she goes, "Yeah." And I go, "Great, then come." And she goes, "Well, it's really expensive and I'm a grad student." And frankly, this is 5:17 a.m., so I've been drinking, right? Like I've been out all night.
Yeah.
I'm going through the airport and I go, "What if I paid for your trip?" And she goes, "Okay." And I'm like, I can't believe I just offered that, but we'll figure it out.
She's never really gonna do it.
Yeah.
And she did?
So she goes, "Okay." So I pull up my phone, I start searching for flights. And now we're trying to match them, but this is causing a backlog. So it's causing a commotion, which makes all the other lines and all of our coworkers now are staring at us.
Yeah.
Now all of duty free is like basically shut down because of this. My friend Liam starts bagging people's things up because the line is just too crazy.
Yeah.
And this guy starts yelling at us because Israel's high security. He goes, "No, you cannot do this. We are going to Israel. I need to bag my own things."
Yeah.
And so we're freaking out. I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm going to get this girl fired. All she wanted to do was come on a trip with me." I go, "When's your break?" She says, 25 minutes. I say, "Great, meet me over there." 25 minutes later, she actually shows up. And we start booking her ticket, except there's one problem. What is it?
No passport.
I still don't know her name.
Ah.
This girl had agreed to travel to a country, and at that time was being bombed by Hamas rockets.
Yeah.
With a complete stranger that she knew for
With a
10
beard.
seconds. I don't think I was doing it.
I didn't make the story better.
But, and so she agrees to do this, and we hadn't even exchanged names.
Wow.
So I get her name, we book her ticket, I run to the airport, to my flight. 24 hours later, she had left her job, picked up her things, got her passport,
Oh my God.
showed up in Israel, and spends a week traveling with me and my entire family.
Get out of here.
I had to explain to my parents that, like, where I've
A random woman who's with you.
Uh,
Did you date ever?
So
Did you?
I'll quickly finish
okay.
up. So here's the craziest part, where it's like the
Because
fourth
that wasn't crazy enough.
we're in a lot on the fourth day, and we walk into her room, Liam and I, and she's crying, and I'm
So
totally
first of all,
confused.
somebody here is saying you could sell ice to the Eskimos.
Yeah,
I've
pretty much.
lost two.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's good. That's good.
Thank you. If there are any Eskimos out there,
I'm selling 2 dozen per bag. Okay.
so
Selling Michael Phelps water.
Yeah.
So we walk into her room and she's crying, and we're like, she's also such a happy person that it would kind of caught me off guard. And we were like, "What's wrong?" And she goes, "What I never told you was that the main reason I accepted this trip was that my father for years has been dying of ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, and this is the first time I've done anything for myself in years.
Oh wow.
And my mom is taking care of him right now while I'm here, and he's just been put back in the hospital. And literally, we had no idea. Like, you know, I
Right.
can't even imagine what that's like. But what we did have control over was how we made the rest of the trip go. And so that night, we had a surprise in store for her. You're walking down the promenade of Eilat, which is this resort city in the south of Israel. And we were approaching the bridge, and I turned to her and I said, "Elsa,
Yes,
when
Anna?
not that
Let it
Elsa.
go.
When we reach the center of the bridge, I'm going to strip down to my underwear, pass my things to Liam, and I think you should do the same." Now, she'd been traveling with me for 3 days at this point, so she was used to my antics.
Yeah.
So we were standing there in our underwear. I take her by the hand. I climb over the safety railing, and I'm like, "Listen, Elsa, at the count of 3, we're going to jump." And she goes, "Are we really going to do this?" And I completely ignore her. We count to 3, and we jump.
Into the river?
It's like 4 stories or 3 stories, into the ocean. And like if we had timed the fall right, we would, and mind you, at this point there was a crowd of people watching us. We would be able to get out of the water, climb up the rocks, push through the crowd, get dressed, and run to the far side of the boardwalk before the police caught us, because it's illegal to do this. Now, when we got to the end of the boardwalk, she was dirty and messy, like all of us were, right? But she was a completely different human being, because she was completely transformed by the experience of pushing her boundaries.
Wow.
And you see, that's what I love about adventure, is that I have no control over what's going on in her life. Right? The situation with her father was just tragic.
Sure.
But there's nothing quite like pushing our boundaries and coming out the other end. And it redefines who we are. The beauty of an adventure isn't just this crazy story. It's that you get to be the type of person who does it. And once you've been through it, you're an expanded person. Right? The same things won't mess with you anymore. And so on the last day of her trip, she was getting into a cab. She was saying goodbye. And she turned to me and she was so sweet. She goes, "Jon, you could have invited anybody to come on this trip. Why'd you choose me?" I looked at her and I was like, "Elsa, well, the simple answer is you said yes." And nobody says yes. I mean, I invite people on trips constantly. And everybody always talks a big game about embracing life. But when posed with the opportunity, they give an excuse why they can't.
Sure.
And so when you meet somebody who actually does that, who actually embraces an opportunity, you've got to do anything you can to spend time with them.
Ah!
And the fact is that
Wow!
you have it wrong. You see, I'm just a madman who invited you. You chose me. You said yes to me, so I have to ask you, why'd you choose me? And she started to tear up, and she gave me this huge hug and got into her cab and went off. And it was kind of funny because my brother, his wife, and daughter were there at the airport, coincidentally going to Stockholm 5 minutes after her. So they picked her up at the airport, took her out to dinner, and then she babysat for them.
Wow.
I have to say, of all of my trips, of all the gifts I've ever gotten, of all the things I've ever gotten at duty free, Elsa was by far the best.
Ah!
She's
Wow!
an amazing person.
That is hands down that is the best story we've heard on the show ever. Right?
Really?
Ever.
It was a great story.
I mean, much
Thank
better
you.
than my stupid Golden Girls story. That was a great story.
I don't know if it was better than
No,
yours.
it was better. Wow, that was such a great story.
If John had told her, like, wow,
I was
you know you should
intrigued
come
by
to Israel, it's really intriguing.
That would have been different. Wait, do you still keep in touch?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little hard. She doesn't even have, one of the things that I was freaking out about after I bought her the ticket was there's no digital record of her. So I was like, who's this person that I actually invited?
Yeah.
She has no Facebook, nothing. She has a flip phone, like an old school,
Yeah.
textable. But so we communicate occasionally over email. And then she, when we had a family reunion, I had her join us.
Wow.
So in 2015, we had a reunion in Amsterdam because half my family's Dutch. And she came and traveled with us.
There's a movie in all this. You see that, right? Like in 10 years, you're going to get married.
I think she has a boyfriend.
That doesn't matter.
But, she's by far one
In the
of those-
movie, she's going to marry her.
In the movie, she's going to marry you. So deal with that. That is awesome.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm so privileged to have heard that story.
I'm
What
really
a
flattered.
great story. What an absolutely great story. So cool.
Thanks.
I mean, I wanted to sit and ask you 100 questions
Please.
about the dinners that you put together, but I'm still marinating them that anyway in this amazing story of love and adventure and spontaneity and the power of yes and all of it.
So one of the things that I often talk about is that there's this quirk of human behavior that whatever we hear about, we think is disproportionately occurs, right? So if you look at, you ask how frequently tornadoes occur, people's numbers are absurdly high. And the world fundamentally is way safer than it's ever been, right? By all accounts, America is safer on every characteristic than it was 30, 40 years ago. And yet, people think that they're constantly in danger because the news tells us, oh, there was this kidnapping or,
Shark attack.
or whatever it is. If you want to, shark attacks, do you know how many people are, terrified of shark attacks?
Yeah, me.
I think that there's been 3 deaths a year
know.
for the past 10
But yet
years.
I don't go in the ocean at night because of a shark attack.
Really?
Yeah, terrible. Terrible.
You're totally missing out. When I was in Barcelona, we went for midnight swims. It was phenomenal.
No. You and you alone. But I would definitely applaud you on your way out and on your way in.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
way safer, and people are way friendlier. I mean, things happen, granted, But chances are, I know plenty of women who travel alone. And yes, like, you know, it's easy being a guy and saying, oh, the world's a safe place. But,
Yeah.
but I know plenty of women who travel by themselves and have never had a single issue.
That's amazing.
So,
Okay, so now I want to tell me about these dinners. Now that I know who you are and what you're about and what is woven through your DNA, tell me where the idea came up, how it happens, and who attends.
cool. So about 8 years ago, I was in a seminar called Wisdom, and the seminar leader said something that just changed my life. He said the fundamental element that defines the quality of our lives are the people we surround ourselves with and the conversations that we have with them. And I thought, if that's the case, and we discussed all that stuff about how our social networks affect us,
Yeah.
then I want to figure out how to curate the most extraordinary people in the world and bring them together.
Okay.
So I spent a year, and I looked at how to model their behavior and understand what the constraints are on their lives and what's affecting them. And then from there, I went to figure out how do we break through all that. And I found that there's certain characteristics that when you put them in place, highly influential people will engage.
Okay.
And I then developed a secret dining experience out of it. 12 people are invited. None of them know each other. They're not allowed to talk about what they do or even give their last name. They cook dinner together. And when they sit down to eat, everybody gets to guess what everybody else does. And they find out that it's Nobel laureate sitting across from a world-famous author, the editor-in-chief of a major magazine sitting across from the president of a television network,
Oh my God.
A four-time Olympian sitting across from a celebrity that's on your favorite show. I've hosted over, I think it's approaching 900 people now.
Wow.
Across about 100 dinners.
How do you get people to agree to this?
You just email them. And most people are easy to get a hold of.
See, Lance, that's your whole theory.
Get everybody together.
No, not that part. The emailing. Just reach out to someone. Just email
Just
them.
contact them. Like,
Yeah.
that's what we've gotten
That's
a
how
lot of
he
our
really
guesses.
wasn't paying attention. He's
Yeah.
like, yep, just wear a dress. No, what dress? No one was talking about a dress.
No, we were talking about
Yeah.
connecting via
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
email, and that's how we do it on the show.
Guys have this
We
great
actually-
thing that we can do, which is we don't pay attention. We somehow absorb
I'm
the
actually
words.
paying
The last
attention.
two words,
And then just
you're
repeat
like,
them
I'm sorry,
back.
so
Yeah,
actually-
of course, that thing,
That
yeah.
In
thing you
fairness
just
to me,
said.
one of the things that we're trying to do is I'm trying to figure out how to integrate polls with our
No,
show.
I'm not making fun of you. Don't, Senorita Sensitiva. It's all right.
So one of the poll I just put up was, do you embrace life, which is basically the question that John was asking. And then the actual subsequent was, are you happy with the people you surround yourself with in terms of a poll?
Oh,
So I'm
cool.
basically what I'm trying to do is integrate, just because I'm doing it live,
Yeah,
I'm figuring we're trying to integrate the polls
with the content.
with the content conversations
With our
and
guests.
with
Oh,
our
very
guests.
cool.
So that's what I'm doing. Do you reach out to people on email?
Yeah, that's the next thing.
Um,
Just so you know, girls can do that too. Yeah, you'll be like, oh, at 2 a.m., right, Jenna? 2 a.m. is always the time I say,
yeah.
right? You know, like, of
Who could
course,
argue
2
with
a.m.
that?
You're right.
Absolutely.
Right on, brother.
Uh,
Okay, so now,
So the question was, are women equal with men?
no, there's no
Oh,
question.
there's no
I was
question.
asking
I was just
if
trying
you
to
were
figure out,
listening.
like,
Yeah,
okay.
no question.
Okay.
So, yeah, I've hosted all these people, and it's kind of crazy and really humbling because, you know, when the person to your left discovered how memory works, and then the person to your right,
Was on like Die Hard.
yeah, or, you know, who did I host recently? Nobel laureate in economics was sitting across from somebody who started 4 television networks.
Wow.
And then was like the CEO of TiVo, and now is the CEO of this other company, and like the
How
guy.
do you choose your people?
I have like kind of an internal formula that I know just from experience. Like, cool. I try to get an equal gender split, and I try to get diversity of ethnicity because
Okay.
I think that it shouldn't just be a bunch of old, stodgy white people.
Right.
But then I try to get diverse industries. So I try to have at least, you know, 8 different industries, 9 different industries represented.
Okay.
Sometimes there's doubling up, but
Are
generally
you
not.
allowed to? Are we allowed to know any of the people that have been at your dinners?
Some people are like Bill Nye the Science Guy, Stacey London.
I know Stacey.
Yeah, she's
She's
wonderful.
cool.
Fern Malice, Francisca Liaga Khan. Who else? Razel, who was with the Roots for years, 2-time Grammy Award
Yeah.
winner. I mean, they're famous musicians from top bands. Think actors from a show you watch have probably Like,
How many no's do you get before you get a yes?
we almost never get a no.
And where are these hosted?
All over the place. We changed the location partially to keep it safe, so that.
But people have to travel to get to this place?
Oh no, we do New York, and we do New York, LA, San Diego, Park City, Miami.
And you just find where all those famous
Can you reset?
Yeah, all those famous people are.
Yeah. No, we do specific cities, and then they come to it.
For the dinner?
Yeah.
We're talking to Jon Levy, who I am wildly, wildly obsessed with at this point, who is an author and a specialist in adventure. What did you call it?
So I'm a scientist, and I study influence and adventure.
Okay, well, those are just words. But if you start listening to who he is, or read his book, or listen to him talk, or understand what he goes through in his work and his studies and research, it's really, really fascinating. It's super, super interesting. So, like, if I lived in Ohio and some random guy emailed me, oh, yeah, I'll get on a plane and go to New York and have dinner.
So that actually happened. I don't think she'd mind that I say this, but I have a huge commitment to help kind of foster care, adoption, and because it's so integrated into the prison system, it's something like 50% or 25% of all people who've gone through the prison system at some point were touched by foster care.
Okay.
Or orphaned or something like that. And so if you can impact adoption and having people have safe homes, then you can actually have a serious impact on the prison population.
Wow.
And so one of the people I approached was the head of the David Thomas Foundation, which is this incredible organization that helps adoption. Because,
That's the Wendy's.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Okay.
And so I actually emailed her. I think she's in Ohio, and she's like, "Yeah, I'll get on a plane and come to a dinner." And so she came to one in New York. But that kind of stuff happens all the time.
Wow.
I've had people fly in from as far as Holland and India.
Get out of here.
So the founder of a very popular company that was actually created in Holland flew in for a dinner.
How often do you have the dinners?
Twice a month in New York, twice a month in LA, and sometimes.
You organize the whole thing?
Well, I have a team of people that work for me. So I'm a strong believer in VAs, virtual assistants, and so we created a set of guidelines, and all kind of interactions have been guided, and I have a person that kind of just fills in all the necessary information, and then like one-click ordering on Instacart gets the food there. Right?
Wow.
So, and then I have friends' homes that keep being generous enough to host it. So
Really cool. And who makes the food?
the guests do. They have to do all the cooking. So the
12 people in a house?
Yep, we have stations, and then they rotate through the stations.
And you can't tell them what your name is, or
You get
what you
to
do
do
for a
first
living.
names, but if you have a very popular first name, like let's say theoretically Deepak, you would go with your middle name,
Okay.
and then people won't recognize you because we're really bad at recognizing people from different races.
Yeah. Or in different environments.
Yes, or outside of context.
Right? That's a really big one. I love that.
Thank you.
I absolutely love it. So who are you dating someone? Because I know these two guys are single right now, Lance and Connor, and they are, I mean, when I say as eligible but yet as really cool as they come, I love you guys to death. You don't even come anywhere near this guy. Can't even touch John.
Wow, I'm blushing.
No,
Thank
it's
you.
all true. There's no opinion.
Wow. I am single.
Wow, thank you, Jenna.
No, Lance, you know
No,
I
no,
love
no. I
you.
believe you. There's a lot of people you
Lance.
can't touch either.
Lance, believe me, I
I
don't
just
think
see
I
you're
know
nice
that.
there. I'm just kidding.
So I'm single.
I can't. Well, how could you possibly be single?
It's really hard when you travel a lot. If somebody wanted
Excuse
to...
me.
Wait, did you say you haven't seen your partner in...
Like 6 months.
Literally? You haven't been in the same...
No, no,
She was home last night.
She was sleeping when I got home. Like, she got home at 10, I got home at 11, and then I was out the door at 5, so I didn't see her this morning. I mean, it's just we're really, really busy. Oh, I get what you're saying.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I got it.
And when did you guys meet?
We met 5 years ago in London.
And was life a little bit different back then?
So different.
Uh-huh,
Much
okay.
different. Yeah, okay, I get it.
All right.
Point made. However, that being said, when time does fall in my lap, I will have someone to spend it with.
Someday, maybe, but not now.
I hope. What's your next big adventure? What are you working on?
I'm working. So this took like forever, and I'm gonna just brag about it for a second.
It's first of all, it's really cool. I love the cover. I love the orange pages. Everything about it is just really neat.
And it has challenges and a rotator, so when you rotate it, you can see cool things to do. So.
And how many people do you think have done any of the things there? Read me 3.
Convince someone you just met.
Actually, one second.
Yeah.
Let me put these up as polls.
If you've done them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, we're talking to Jon Levy. He's the author of this great book, The 2 a.m. Principle. He is the captain of adventure. To all the people out there that are like, I'm adventurous, I embrace yes, I'm in it, I do it, I'm anti-fear. You don't even scratch the surface until you meet a guy who will explain to you what that really means. So he's done it, he's been there and he's done that.
So give me the best one for a poll that you
okay. So, go alone to a foreign city, make new friends, and convince them to let you stay at their home. So this is based on when I went to Nice, France. I wanted to challenge myself to see how good I'd become at meeting people. So I dropped myself off. I don't speak French. I don't know Nice. I've never been there. I didn't know anybody. I didn't have a place to stay. And the deal was the last train had left, and either I'd convince a stranger to put me up for the night, or I'd sleep on the street.
Oh my, what? We need to get your parents on the show. Go on.
Okay. So convince someone you just met to spontaneously travel with you. That's the story of Elsa, where I, within 10 seconds of meeting the duty-free sales rep that was behind the counter,
her to come to Israel with you.
She got on the next flight to Israel and left her job. Crash a party and toast the whole room. A few years back,
that's a great one, Lance. Crash a party and toast the whole room.
A few years back, I got really frustrated with amateur holidays. So I hate New Year's in New York because there's all this expectation and pressure, and nothing ever lives up to it.
Never.
It's miserable.
No one ever says, I had the best New Year's Eve ever.
Except, I decided that me and my best friend, Liam, who I mentioned from the Elsa story, we decided that the way out of that whole thing is to eliminate all expectations by making no plans. And so at about 11, we just randomly met up with a friend of ours. We were walking down the street on New Year's Eve. I see a large group of people, and I push our friends into the middle of this group, and nobody notices. They're too caught up in conversation. We go with this group into an apartment, and they think it's where we were planning on going to, but it's not. It's like this 3-bedroom on the Upper West Side. And 2 of the friends went to sit down, just like, to hang out. And Liam and I start walking through the party, and it's really clear everybody knows we're not supposed to be there because we're not members of the Philharmonic.
Oh, wow.
Like everybody else was.
Okay.
So it's really awkward, and Liam says, okay, I'm going to go find the host and explain that we crashed.
Yeah.
And I walk up to the hostess then, and I go, hey, my name is Jon Levy. For better or worse, I've just crashed your New Year's party, but I bring gifts and an experience. Here are 2 bottles of champagne, and I'm going to teach you how to saber them, when you take it.
Yep.
So next thing I know, she has this giant knife. We're leaning out the window, and I'm teaching her how to saber. We're pouring champagne. It's like 5 minutes to the countdown, and we're toasting. And that's how we kind of earned our way into this party.
I love that. I love it.
So
it's very cool. Granted, I'd probably have you arrested because that's the cynical perspective where I come from, but that is amazing.
And here's one more. Survive or get crushed at Running of the Bulls in Pamplona, Spain.
Of course you've done that. Of course. And you've probably done it like 5 times.
I've done it once, and I don't really plan on doing it again because on July 7th, 2013, after making it through Running of the Bulls, like the run part just fine, I made it into the stadium, and I didn't realize that they closed the gates in on you, and then they let the bulls back in one at a time while you're in the stadium.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so what happened?
What happened was...
People get killed that way.
I randomly took an Uber when I was in Chicago this year, and the Uber driver had been gored in the Running of the Bulls and wrote a book about it.
Well, that's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, there's this weird characteristic called the winner effect. And it works like this. Once you have a win, and all of us have probably experienced this at some point, we fill with testosterone and we get really hyped up about it.
Yeah.
This prepares us for the next battle or challenge, making it more likely that we'll succeed. As you stack more and more of these, you flood with more and more testosterone, and you get to the point with enough of it that you think you're invincible. So when the bulls came in, I ran up to them and slapped them,
Yeah.
and I ran away. And I kept doing all these stupid things. But the biggest challenge you could do at running of the bulls is you lie down on the ground in front of the gate where the bulls enter, and then they jump over you. And they'll clear like 12 people. It's incredible.
Okay.
So I decide, I'm totally pumped up. I'm the stupidest I've ever been in my life. I get in the safest position. I crouch down on the ground,
Yeah.
and I cover my head, and they open the gates, and I see the bulls coming, and it's supposed to jump, but it slips, misses its jump, and lands on my back.
Oh.
And I lose all feeling in my torso. Time literally stops. The screams of all 4,000 or so spectators just disappear, and I realize that I might be paralyzed. Like, I literally feel nothing below my neck. And I have to make this decision. Either, if I'm paralyzed, I'm either going to regret the fact that I've lived this adventurous life, or I'm going to accept that this was a fluke and that I got to live on my own terms. And I was like, okay, I can do this. And luckily, time started again, and I managed to stand up, but there was something clearly really wrong with my body. And I start yelling for a doctor, but nobody can help me. It's literally dragging bodies out, trying to get them to safety. And somebody points to the triage center, and I find my way there, but the pain now is so overwhelming, I'm losing my ability to speak.
Oh my gosh.
And
Jon!
then I end up starting to pass out. And so the nurse sits me down, wakes me up. Doctor comes over to check me out, and he's rotating my arm and shoulder, and there's something clearly wrong with my shoulder. And I wasn't sure if it was dislocated and he was putting it back in, or if it was broken, or if he was just torturing a stupid American, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, "It's just a contusion, get out of here." And I'm like, first of all, what's a contusion? Second of all, I'm not going anywhere, I was just going unconscious.
Yeah.
He goes, "It's a bad bruise." And I felt like such an idiot, because bruises don't hurt that much. There's no way.
Yeah.
Eventually I ended up in a hospital. I went to the emergency room, and the doctors told me that I shouldn't fly because air might have been pushed around my lungs from the impact,
Oh.
and it would collapse my lungs midair.
Oh my.
And it had crushed the muscle group to the point that I couldn't lift anything or move. So I needed wheelchair service at the airports, and then I needed friends to take me into bed and pull me out. And so it was 6 months of agonizing physical therapy, and my back is still kind of screwed up.
Do you regret it?
It's one of those funny things that it's such a definitive story for my life that I love it. But I think that it's just because as people, when things are bad enough, we make a really great story of it so that we say it was good for us.
Right.
So when people lose all their money and make it back, they're like, I'm happier that it happened, it made me grow.
Are you saying that they don't really believe that?
No, they actually believe it. The neuroscience really shows that they believe it. It's that in reality, if you ask them while they're broke and suffering.
Yeah, they don't.
Yeah.
So my friend called me this morning and basically laid it on and was like, I lost my job, and my boss knew that I was trying to make this mortgage, and now we didn't get cleared for a mortgage, and I'm just in a really bad place, and I just don't have any money right now, and I'm trying to be positive, I'm trying to make work. And I said to him, listen, 10 years from now, you're going to use this as one of many things that beat you down but didn't let it keep you down. I go, we all have them. I go, my boss destroyed my resume tape, said I would never work in the business again. I cried my eyes out. It could have been it for me. But, now years later, I use that as one of 5 stories that were equally as bad that got me to where I am today. Perseverance, resilience, strength, power, all of it, strong mind and everything. I said, you're in it now, so it sucks. Mm-hmm. But the minute you come out of it, that story is going to empower you.
Yep.
That's going to make you a stronger person. That is going to solidify your resolve. You're going to see it, and you're going to love it, and you're going to brag about it.
So it's one of these incredible things. Everybody wants to have gone through an uncomfortable growth experience, but we're going to complain and scream and shout along the way.
Sure.
And so it's one of the things I often say is that you can't have an adventure without growth, and growth is uncomfortable. So I wish you an incredibly uncomfortable life.
Oh, and I take that wish, and I applaud you for giving it to me. Thank you so much. You are ridiculously interesting, and I can talk to you for hours and hours. And I love who you are and what you stand for, and I love where you're going. I love the journey. I love the path, and I love everything about you. Is that too much? Too much for me to say?
That's like the sweetest thing I think anybody's ever said to me. And I'm super curious about you, but I figure like they probably know all your stories.
They know all my stories already. Like, yeah, well, yada yada. It's I always think I lead an interesting life, and then every so often, you know.
Well, what is this one story that would actually say where you kind of push the boundaries?
There was mine don't compare to like going into a duty-free shop and convincing someone to come somewhere with me. You know, mine are like when I whited out the date on my intern thing as a college student so that I could be the only one that got into the TV station to intern for 4 straight years to eventually get myself a job. Like, and I went in a week before and I made them think that the English department did this. You're only allowed to do one internship as a college student, one internship at each TV station.
Okay.
But I knew I was going to be a reporter and I was going to work at that TV station. I knew it was going to happen. I just had to get myself from here to there, just figure out how I was going to do it.
Yeah.
So a week before the English department would send over all the intern applicants to the TV station, I knew when they were doing it. A week before it happened, I took a blank, one of the blank sheets that I used for mine. I had made a Xerox copy of it, whited out the date, and reprinted a new date, went into the thing, and submitted mine and just said the English department said I could bring this to you.
Oh, yeah.
And ended up, interning there for like 4 semesters. And then, as I predicted, I got myself a job and I was in the industry. But that's not crazy. Those are just those are little things that I've done along the way. So I'm trying to think of something crazy.
That's incredible.
It's crazy for like a 19-year-old. Like,
yeah,
for
that's
someone
Ferris
to, like,
Bueller style,
right.
like calling in and pretending to be the Sausage King of Chicago.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Are you kidding?
I mean, I'm trying to think, because I've done some, like when I told my parents I was at Amy Cleary's, we were babysitting her little sister, but I was really skydiving, and I jumped with a photographer and a videographer, and I came back and that night, and it was up in Newburgh, and I sat down, and I was like, "You guys want to see something?" And I put it in, and I thought they were gonna like, they loved it. They hated it. My dad got up and walked out. It terrified him. But like, I don't know. I seek adventure, but I love speed and I love heights and I love that kind of thing. But what I'm not as good at is being too far outside my comfort zone, because adventure is not outside my comfort zone, right? Like, I raced around the Indy track with Mario Andretti at 220 miles an hour. Like, big deal. That did nothing for me. I scaled the CN Tower in Toronto. No problem.
How did you
I didn't scale it. I went to the very top and I came down a little bit with a rope. It was like a thing that they were having people do, and they invited like 2 or 3 people from any media outlet around the world. So just tried, and most people said no. But that stuff isn't scary for me. Like, it's far more terrifying for me to, get dropped in Nice and make friends. It's far more terrifying for me to go to a party that I don't know anyone at.
Really?
Even Americans, like, that I, that should be my friends. Like, I can't do that, but I could, I bungee jumped with one cord around one ankle. You name it. I've done just about everything there is to do as far as those kind of adventures. But you're doing it. You're pushing the boundaries of your own, like, fear, strength, psyche as a human. Like, you're pushing your own social boundaries, which is really an unbelievable feat, which will make you a stronger person.
So here's something really interesting. Have you ever heard of a guy named Mihai Csikszentmihalyi?
No.
One of the weird names in science.
His last name is Csikszentmihalyi, and his parents are like, what should be Bob? No. How about Harry? How about Mihai? Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. I love it.
So Mihai did the seminal work on something called flow state. And flow state is the peak state of human performance. If you talk to an athlete when they're in the zone, when you talk to a writer and they're just flowing, they call it flow state. And there's a series of characteristics. It has to be something that you already have skill in, and you're doing something just outside your skill set, but not so great that you're failing at it all the time. And one of the fastest ways to get into it is to put yourself in kind of like a near-death experience, which is why extreme athletes enter the flow, right? They talk about seeing the lines and all that. And in flow state, you almost never make a wrong choice. Like, is it
like the way a quarterback, the game suddenly slows down for them on certain days, or
exactly.
Like Kobe can't stop hitting threes, and it's just okay.
Yes, that's exactly it. Because in this state, you are melded with the experience, and there's no distance between the two. Dancers will describe going into a spin that takes a fraction of a second, and they'll describe the eternity of the spin,
Right.
and they can see every portion of it. Or, you know, an artist will paint for 6 hours, forget to eat, and think it was 10 minutes.
Right.
But the key to that is in doing something that's just outside of your skill set, just outside of your comfort zone, because then it's exciting. If it's familiar, it's uninteresting. If it's too hard, you'll keep failing. So probably what I'd say is the healthiest way to go about growth is to just continuously chip away at what's just outside of your comfort zone. Because if you go too audacious,
Yeah.
it's going to be, and especially if it's dangerous, it could be catastrophic.
Wait a minute. Lance, walking up to Janine, the trapeze artist.
I was waiting for you to get up.
That was it. I was a perfectly interesting, heterosexual,
Until you got on the
24-year-old,
trapeze.
23-year-old who went on vacation with my best friend to Turks and Caicos, and then there was this. It was a Club Med, and there's like a trapeze thing, and I walked by it, and I was like, I'll try this because it seems easy enough. And the woman that was running it, I don't know,
Something clicked.
I just like fell in something with whatever it was. I didn't understand it. I was dating a guy. No part of it made any sense to me whatsoever. And I somehow grew a pair of balls that were so big that by the end of like 4 days, at this big bonfire at the end of it, I didn't even know she was gay. She didn't even know my name. I don't know where I came from. I walked up to her and I said, "Can I talk to you for a second?" And she's like, "Yes." And I put on my best pitch, which was a ridiculous pitch. Like, nobody would want to date me after the pitch I put on, but it was all I knew and all I had. And she just looked at me and she said, "Thank you." And she just walked away. Nothing ever came of it. I didn't come out for another like 10 years after that.
Uh-huh.
But it was like it was the craziest thing I had ever done. I don't know
Good
where
for
it came
you.
from, but it felt wonderful and empowering. And yes, I was crushed at that moment. But like we talk about, I use that as such an empowering story years later when I go back and look at it.
So did you ever date guys after that, or?
I did. I dated guys for like 7 years after that. And
Wow.
then
And you're like, I'm just done.
they
with
were
this.
all, I'm like, guys, you're just all awful. I just always meet the wrong guy. Yeah, every lesbian says the same thing. I always meet the wrong guys. And then I think the first time a lesbian kisses another woman for the very, very first time, you're like, oh my God, of course. Like,
Uh-huh.
that's what it was. Duh, obviously. So that's what it was for me. Yes, Lance.
So actually, I was going to combine a few of what's going on. So there was a guy I know named Buddy Biancalana. And Buddy Biancalana, I'm just going to relate this to the World Series. He played for the Kansas City Royals in 1985. He came second in the MVP voting. Earlier in the year, and in the MVP voting for the World Series, earlier in the year, David Letterman had him on the show with his bat because his bat had never hit the ball. But he actually got so into the zone during the World Series that he played out of his mind, and he's been studying the flow zone for like the last 30 years ever since then. So
Oh, wow.
all of that was sort of coming together. Like, for me, so,
That's very interesting.
Buddy Bianca, and he has like the greatest name also, like
Yeah. just
Buddy
like
Biancalana.
Cheek me high.
Chic me high.
The interesting thing about names is that, so I did a study where we looked at mobile dating apps. And we found that if you have the same initials as somebody, you're something like 10% more likely to date them. We looked at 400 million potential matches. And so there's this thing called implicit egotism, which is things that remind us of ourselves are more attractive and appealing. And so it would be unsurprising if somebody whose name was Buddy was a nice person.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Because we also tend to like take on, right?
Yeah.
I know a guy named Jim Quick who works on Thinking Faster. You know, like
Oh, wow, yeah.
And so it's I don't think it's actually coincidental if somebody has a name that means something. They
Amy Freeze, who I was at the event with last night, is a
He's a
meteorologist.
meteorologist.
Amy Freeze.
Yep.
That's her real name.
Really?
Meteorology is a big topic here.
I know. Wait, are you really a Jonathan or a John?
Jonathan.
See, Jonathan Levy,
Somebody's
I
asking
get.
what you're doing now. Like just,
Sorry, go ahead.
What am I doing now professionally?
I think that's what he meant.
I
I think maybe he knows that you're on the Jenna Wolf show right now.
Yeah. So I am. I consult for companies, and so I work with a whole slew of them, either doing research or applying research. I do a ton of public speaking. So I leave Friday for a talk, and then I come back for another series, and I do that, and I train companies on how to build their influencer programs, and I'm essentially a consultant and researcher, and I guess now an author. As of actually November 8th, it comes out. So if any of you order it now, it goes towards my New York Times in hopes of becoming a New York Times bestseller. And so the pre-orders go towards the first week sales. So if this is appealing to you in any way,
yes,
please pick up a copy.
Order this book. It's a great book, The 2 A.M. Principle.
If you want to reach me on social, I'm Jon Levy, JONLEVY. T like Thomas, L like Lion, B like Boy. Jon Levy TLB. And the reason for the name is kind of silly. When I was a senior in high school, I was noticing how most adults seem really upset with life, and so I reread all these kids' books, and the one that inspired me the most was Peter Pan and the Lost Boys. So because they lived a life of wonder and adventure, which is what I wanted.
Yeah.
And so since Jon Levy is probably the most common name in New York, I added TLB because there's
The Lost Boys.
Yes.
I love it. Corey Haim. Oh, sorry, I just threw that out there.
Corey.
Remember Corey Haim and Corey Feldman, they were in a movie, The Lost Boys?
Oh,
it
yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
Peter Pan.
Yes, it was about vampires.
Yes, it was.
What was the movie they were in? The original movie that they were in. It was a really good movie.
Not The Goonies.
Stand by Me.
Yes. Were they?
No, they weren't in that.
One of the Corey Feldman was.
Neither of the Corys were in that, I don't think. Maybe
O'Connell
Corey
was
Feldman was.
I don't know. That was all I remember.
Anyway. Thank you so much for being here.
This was such a treat.
Yeah?
Thanks for having me.
Oh, I
on.
really,
Can I ask you
an
one more
absolute
question? Have you seen the movie Diner?
No. What is it?
It's his favorite movie, but no one's seen it.
Wait. No.
No, you haven't. If
No.
you don't know it, you haven't seen it. It's okay, Lance. It's just keep...
What's it?
And I
Amazing.
wonder about the state of our country, and all of these smart people have not seen.
Have you
Maybe
seen the
there's a
state of our
reason for it.
country?
I know, right?
Yeah.
But I know that's why I'm if
So you
everybody,
think the solution was Diner?
as if everybody had seen, like my generation, we all saw Diner, and our generation,
Yeah.
What are you, the last great generation? Was
Last
that?
great generation. That was
yeah,
it.
my generation is
just a
probably the
bunch
last
of,
great generation.
Whatever we are.
Yeah, the end of the baby boomers. All right.
Anyway, so for those of you who are listening, if you want to find out how I battled Kiefer Sutherland in Junk and Jenga and got myself to crash his Thanksgiving dinner, find out how I convinced that duty-free girl to quit her job within 10 seconds of meeting, or survived being crushed by a bull, pick up a copy.
It's all in here.
It would be my pleasure to hear from all of you. I'm super easy to find. Jon Levy TLB. And thank you so much. Can I give you a hug?
I would love a hug.
Cool.
Can we take a picture? And
Yeah,
post it?
I'll
absolutely.
take a picture in 1 second. I'm
Awesome.
putting up a new poll.
What's the new poll?
Have you seen Diner?
Oh, gosh. Well, I don't want to saturate it so that people are like, ugh, another poll, and they don't vote.
We're getting a ton of votes.
Oh, okay. That was great.
I have to go meet Larry.
Who?
Larry Logan.
Oh, Larry.
Oh.
He was...
Tell him you were on the show because we were actually this is still live. Yeah.
He's just messaging.
Well, he doesn't have to watch it, but you can just tell me. I can tell you.
I think back and forth. So right now they're just watching.
Yeah. Just the
That's how we build that up. Eventually. Oh, 1 second. Here was your book.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do.
You want to see a photo of the? So you have a pretty serious workout.
Yeah.
That's where you're in the background.
I mean, that's my talent. Oh, no, that's actually first I did. I posted a picture when I mentioned
By the way. was going to show you how things figure out. Do it again. So what are you going to do over the winter? Indoors or?
We haven't decided yet. We're gonna try to get.
You might actually get
Hold on, Lance. I'm gonna swallow because yesterday you posted a picture with lovely Beth, and my face was doing that slow. But you obviously don't look at my face when you post it. Hold on. 5 more seconds. Less. 3, 2.
I obviously think
And
you're
right.
beautiful when you don't think you are beautiful. All
And then one more.
Can I do one with Lance?
Yeah, come here. Samsung.
Yeah, I'm on the micro program. Wait, do we have one of mine that doesn't have a...
Sorry, that way.
We don't.
Thank you.
Awesome.
So,
Actually, here, can we take a picture of you guys?
are you around this weekend? Are you booked?
This weekend. Wait, is this the last one you're in town ever? Hold on.
I'm just thinking if you come to my salon, you will both. The salon is 60 people, 3 famous speakers, and a musical act sometimes. So I launched another program at the It's called the Salon. It happens once, twice a month in New York. This month it's happening like 5 times because of the book. And so I get about 60 people to come, with 3 famous speakers and offer a musical act. We have them speak, but nobody's allowed to talk about what they do in the first half. And then they have talks, and then we can talk about whatever. And so,
60 people managed to get in on this?
not all speaking, but the first 2.
When do you do it?
I'm doing one Friday, one Saturday.
What
and-
time Saturday night?
Yeah, 9:30.
Really?
Are you in bed by then?
No, I mean, I could make it so I'm not.
But you can bring, what's your partner? So if you wanted to bring Stephanie, you can find the sitter.
You guys, by the way, you realize this camera's live.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so they can hear? Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, I just don't know.
Can you believe you want me to cheat on Stephanie? That's insane. I'm totally joking. I knew you were alive. Yeah, can you
Wait, so
email
that's a maybe? No.
me?
Can I?
Yeah. Can I get your email address? Or just
I'll
I'll tell you.
all right, will you tie us in? I would love that.
Yeah. I'm super impressed. That is the sweetest thing.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
So please come. It would be my pleasure. And I'm super curious how many of these, like,